The Zephyrian delegation's ship descended through Earth's atmosphere with the casual arrogance of a species that had never known defeat. Ambassador Crickstyle adjusted his ceremonial robes, each thread woven with the conquered dust of 17 different worlds. Today would mark the 18th. The humans will comply, he assured his aide Velnash, who nervously checked the translation matrix for the 100th time. They always do. Present them with superior technology, demonstrate our power, and they grovel like the rest. The landing was precise, calculated to intimidate. The ship's massive shadow fell across the United Nations building in New York, its hull gleaming with materials that didn't exist in any human periodic table. When the ramp descended, Crickstyle emerged with the fluid grace of a predator. His forearms spread wide in what his species considered a gesture of magnanimous condescension. The human delegation waited in the plaza below, diplomats in expensive suits, military officials with stern faces, and translators clutching their devices like lifelines. At their head stood Secretary General Chen, a woman whose reputation for negotiation had apparently preceded her even to Zephyrian space. "Greetings, humans of Earth," Crickstyle's voice boomed through the translation field. "I am Ambassador Crickstyle of the Zephyrian hegemony. Your species has been evaluated and found adequate for integration into our empire." The humans exchanged glances. Chen stepped forward, her diplomatic training evident in every measured movement. "Welcome to Earth, Ambassador. We appreciate this opportunity for first contact." Crickstyle's mandibles clicked in what passed for amusement among his kind. "Indeed, your world possesses resources we require, and your species shows potential for manual labor. We offer you the privilege of joining our great civilization as a tributary state." "And the terms?" Chen asked, though her tone suggested she already suspected the answer. "Simple. You will provide us with 10% of your population annually to serve as laborers in our mining operations. In exchange, we will not sterilize your world and will even share some of our more basic technologies. It is, I assure you, quite generous." The plaza fell silent, except for the whisper of wind through the flags of nations that suddenly seemed very small and fragile. Chen's face remained diplomatically neutral, but something flickered in her eyes, a hardness that Crickstyle's sensors failed to categorize. "I see. And if we refuse?" Crickstyle gestured toward his ship, where weapon ports had quietly opened during their conversation. "Then we take what we need anyway, and your species joins the archaeological record." Chen nodded slowly. "We'll need time to consider your generous offer." "Of course. 24 of your hours should be sufficient." As the Zephyrian delegation returned to their ship, Chen turned to General Morrison, the grizzled head of the Joint Chiefs. Their conversation was brief, conducted in whispers that the aliens' surveillance couldn't penetrate. 23 hours. And 58 minutes later, Chen stood again in the plaza. This time, she wasn't alone. Behind her stood a single figure, tall, broad-shouldered, and wearing the simple olive-drab uniform of a United States Army sergeant. Staff Sergeant Maria Santos had been selected not for her diplomatic skills, but for something far more valuable. "Ambassador Crickstyle," Chen called as the alien delegation descended once more. "We have reached our decision." "Excellent. I trust you've seen reason." "We have indeed. However, there's been a slight modification to your proposal." Crickstyle's four eyes focused on her with predatory intensity. "Modification?" Chen smiled, and this time it was genuine and terrifying. "You demanded slaves. We're sending you a soldier instead." Before Crickstyle could respond, Santos stepped forward. In her hands was something that made the aliens' sensors scream warnings, a simple device roughly cylindrical with a pin at the top. "Staff Sergeant Maria Santos, 82nd Airborne Division," she said, pulling the pin with her teeth. "Nice to meet you, motherfuckers." The explosion wasn't large by human standards, barely enough to crater the plaza, but it served its purpose. As secondary detonations rippled through the Zephyrian ship's hull, Santos's sacrifice bought humanity exactly what it needed: time. Across the globe, sleeper protocols activated. Every radio telescope turned skyward. Every military satellite locked onto the massive ship now listing and burning in Earth's atmosphere. And deep in silos that officially didn't exist, doors opened, on humanity's most carefully guarded secret. The Zephyrians had made a critical error in their intelligence gathering. They had cataloged human cities, human populations, human resources. They had noted humanity's primitive chemical rockets and quaint nuclear weapons. But they had missed something crucial about the species they intended to enslave. Humans didn't build weapons to win wars. They built weapons to end them. The first kinetic kill vehicle struck Krixtal's ship at 0.2 c, 20% the speed of light. The second and third followed microseconds later, because humans had learned long ago that if something was worth shooting, it was worth shooting repeatedly. The antimatter warheads came next because while humanity might have been primitive by galactic standards, they weren't stupid. When you found something that worked, you built more of it. Many, many more. As the Zephyrian flagship transformed into an expanding cloud of superheated plasma, every human government activated their contingency broadcasts. The message was simple, transmitted on every frequency they could generate in every mathematical language they could conceive. To any species receiving this transmission, the Zephyrian hegemony attempted to enslave humanity. We have responded accordingly. We do not seek conquest, but we will not accept subjugation. Approach with peaceful intentions, and we will meet you as equals. Approach as conquerors, and you will leave as plasma. In the ruins of the plaza, Chen picked up a piece of twisted alien metal, still warm from the explosion. She thought about Santos, who had volunteered for this mission knowing it was one way. She thought about the 17 worlds that had bent the knee to Zephyrian arrogance. And she smiled. Because humans had learned something important in their brief, violent history, there was a vast difference between a slave and a soldier. Slaves were owned, controlled, and broken. But soldiers? Soldiers chose their battles, and when they chose to fight, they fought to win. The stars suddenly seemed much closer and far less intimidating. Somewhere in the cold void between worlds, other ships received fragments of the Zephyrian transmission, cut short mid-sentence. The galaxy was about to learn why humanity had crawled its way to the top of their own world's food chain. They sent a soldier instead of a slave. And that, as they say, made all the difference.